Cool. What church is that?
Community of Christ on Miller Road between MLK and Cedar. And then
Oh,
we have called Journey House. We have a student housing house on Grand River, and then we have another one at the congregation in Rose Lake area.
oh
So
wow. Cool. Hi, John.
Hi, Laura. How you doing?
Good morning. Hi,
Morning.
Bill.
Hey there.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
There's some pretty leaves out and a whole lot of leaf blowers.
That blows. Don't smile, Bill. No, I'm
Yeah,
just
it's
kidding. Okay. Well,
how we get over our addiction to power tools is
well, you set a good example. I
mm.
think that's about as much as you can do, really. But I could be
Well,
wrong.
you could outlaw it. We won't. But
Me?
this township, we actually exempted it from our noise ordinance, all that stuff.
Huh. I can't believe we allow power boats on Lake Lansing, but I guess I'll. Um, Anywho, what do y'all want to talk about today?
I want to talk about all those people who live on Lake Lansing and don't take good care of it. All those people who run their power boats on Lake Lansing.
Okay.
Ned, Ned,
Next.
Ned. I notice he's keeping his head down here.
Great. Actually, we do have a powerboat. However, we haven't used it part. It got very, very little use this summer. However, yesterday it got used because it was being taken out and it had to drive across to the boat launch, which is sad. But anyway.
Yeah.
But
Anyway.
you know, there are these crazy people who come out and they'll rent a sailboat, not rent, but they'll borrow one, and then they'll go around. These sailboats have deep, center boards, and you never know when you're going to hit the bottom and carve up, some poor, um, some clams habitat or something. It's really tragic.
Yeah, they're scoundrels, every single one of them, those sailors. Complete hazard to the water life of.
Actually, there is something I really need to do, which is to spend some time learning how to use, other nasty polymers. That is to say, I need to fiberglass a hole in my windsurfer. Uh, that's a detail.
The joys of chemistry.
Yeah, yeah.
How
When
about
was
you?
the last time the lake was had the
Dredging?
well,
Dredging?
it's not so much. I am interested in dredging, but mainly the removal of the plant life.
Oh,
They have that machine that.
yeah. The underwater harvester, underwater combine. Uh, yeah, that machine is very interesting. It's this barge with cutters that it can lower down to the bottom and basically a conveyor belt kind of thing that pulls the cut plant matter. Because a lot of these plants, the nasty thing about them is that when you cut them, the little um, whatever the fragments simply go and find another place to grow. And so if you chop them up, you're just making the problem a lot worse. But yes, this lake is uh, it is about as far from natural as a natural lake could be. uh,
The basin itself is natural.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was dredged before our time. It was dredged in, I guess, the early '80s or something, maybe late '70s.
To widen it, deepen it.
In
It's very
19,
shallow, as you
1980,
probably know.
in 1983, it was dredged, and I think the predominant thought was they were going to make some areas deeper, but things didn't work out the way that they wanted to. They ran into a lot of chemicals, including arsenic and other things that kept them from taking as much out as they'd originally hoped to when they started the project. Most of the dredgings ended up on the north side of the lake in the area that's now adjacent to what's commonly used as part of Lake Lansing Park North.
Yeah, if you walk through Lake Lansing Park North, there's this mound, giant mound, which for many years had fence around it that said sort of don't go in. It kind of appears as though it's a caldera. You know, it's a big pile with kind of a depression in the middle of the top, which is where they dumped the leavings. This is my understanding. However, my understanding also is that although there were concerns about arsenic, because there are arsenic-based herbicides that had been used, I guess. When they did water testing and soil testing, they haven't found a lot of evidence for it now. And so either it found a way to percolate down into our drinking water and we're getting rid of it that way, or else it wasn't as severe a problem as they thought in the first place. Even now, there are places where arsenic-based herbicides are used, or lawn. Specifically, civilians can't use that stuff, but I think, if I remember right, golf courses still have permission to use arsenic-based treatments in certain places, which is a really horrendous fact. But I might have it wrong. That's the last time I looked, which is quite a few years ago.
Sarah and John, what's on your mind today? Not to totally change the subject.
But you don't want to talk about chemistry all day?
No, I do. But I just want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to voice what's on their mind. We can go in different tangents too. I mean, we got another 10 minutes here. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't have any, go ahead, Sarah.
No, I was just gonna say I don't really have anything. I'm working with the faith-based group that's kind of trying to work with brownfields and see where we go with that, and we're still working on it, so we'll see what happens. Trying to see if we are, like trying to educate the community about them, or I don't know. We're working on that. So, but I don't really have anything. So I'm good.
Mm-hmm. Did you know that Ned is on the Brownfield Development Committee?
Yes, I have a question to ask him that I was going to email, but I can't remember what it was. So you'll see it in email.
That's okay. I have no functional memory anyway, so it doesn't. I'll look forward to your question, and then I'll forward it to people who actually know things.
Okay, thank you.
Don, have you written any songs lately?
Not lately. Just getting ready for the winter here. It's been pretty busy, but I did decide to go with the Digesters. So it was Amy. What is it? I can't even think of the name now. What are those digesters called again?
Anaerobic.
Anaerobic digesters,
Okay,
right?
so it's anaerobic and the digesters. I guess that would probably be best. I can use the other one for something else here. But I haven't written anything yet, but I do have a number of different possibilities for, I'm going to kind of go with a rap orientation on this, so a lot of things can be thrown in. And excuse me, I hope this week to be able to get a rhythm track going, but I'm a little bit behind on this, so it's a slow mover.
I think my preference would be anaerobe and the digesters, only because anaerobe is the noun and anaerobic is an adjective, but that's a detail. But throwing a variety of things in there sounds ideal, because of course that's what you do with an anaerobic digester, newer rotting food, more or less anything that can rot. So, yeah.
Well, I'm also thinking that there are a lot of things just in the news that have to do with the fires, have to do with the floods, have to do with things generally that are related to the environment and how we're dealing with plastics, how we're, there's just so much that can be included. The idea of being able to do a rap song that has something that many things are spit out, and it works at a beats per minute that's kind of up there a bit, I think would be interesting. And then it can sort of slow down at some point, and or something at half tempo can come in and float over the top of all the other things. I've got some ideas for it, but it's not specific yet. So I'm still, how do you say, digesting it, I guess.
Oh, that's a good one.
So you don't want to use mealworms on the plastic munchers, huh?
Well, there's another good one. Maybe Mealworms could be the name of the album, I guess. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of options there.
You could have some loud power tools in the background too, or like outboard motors,
There you go.
just to sort of spice it up a little.
Yeah, as long as you can work that in with a compressor, so that you can get the sound kind of punched down a little bit, it might actually be something you could incorporate, I suppose. And I'm not talking about a compressor like you pump your tires up with, but one that you use in the studio to sort of punch it, so bring that sound down, the peaks down.
Anaerobic digestion also has some interesting noises associated with it, which I'd be happy to contribute.
Gurgles.
That'd take a little different direction with it, but all things are possible. There's different markets, and that would appeal to certain markets and not to others, I guess.
I do have a question. Different topic. Has anybody heard whether stores like Myers have lifted the plastic bag ban or the take your own bag in kind of lift? They had said with COVID that you couldn't bring them in and stuff. Has anybody heard whether that's been lifted or not?
I haven't heard it. I haven't seen anything at the store that would indicate that. So I don't think it's changed.
Okay. Because it's just so many plastic bags that are being used because of it. So,
Yeah.
Although,
Okay.
if you, I mean, I've ridden my bike over there with a backpack on my back, and it's not as though they make you check your backpack at the door or something like that. I suppose in principle, you could just do the checkout without accepting a bag.
well, I do the shop and scan so if you do the shop, if you scan it while you shop, you can use your own bag. So that I do it that way, but I'm just thinking of all these other people that don't do it that way, that are required that aren't allowed to take them in.
Right.
So
Yeah,
I
it's
just-
definitely. You would think it would augment. Probably the fraction of people who actually bring their own bags is unfortunately small anyway, but it certainly wouldn't want to have a barrier to it, ideally.
yeah.
What do they do at Aldi? Is that what it's called? I mean, you can't. They don't have bags at all. You have to bring something of your own to haul your stuff out.
You can buy a bag
You can buy
if you,
that.
if you need it, but yeah, typically you bring your own bags or carry it, balance it
Or
on
they
your
have-
forehead.
They have the boxes too, but I don't know if they're right now if that's how you still can use it or not. I don't know.
I mean, it does seem like there are stores that are going in that direction to an extent. I know at Costco, there's no bags there. You can use one of their boxes if you've got them, as you're heading out of the store. So there are stores that are going in that direction. I don't know. Myers, I suppose, a little bit different, and Kroger a little bit different, but I don't know. Do they get encouraged to do that, or wasn't it last time we talked about this? Wasn't it that somebody said that the state actually passed a law that said that localities couldn't pass a law to require?
Yeah, they banned it that you weren't allowed to say no bags. They banned it.
Okay.
Like a state law saying you can't say no plastic bags.
Can't ban plastic bags. Yeah, right.
I took my backpack into Myers the other day in the regular line, and they let me fill it up. Maybe they just
Okay.
we're trying to manage 12 other people at the same time, so maybe I wasn't. That's why I wasn't arrested, but it seemed to work okay.
Good.
I always like the justification for that kind of a law, that it's going to be too confusing. Right? If some localities ban bags and others don't, then gee whiz, that's going to be really confusing.
Yeah, it's all the way down, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
Is that what
Too hard
over
business
in the-
owners have
in
to
the-
supply bags at one store and not at the other. It's a
Yeah,
burden on the grocery stores.
it's a terrible burden, yeah.
They don't know what locality they're in.
Whatever. My wife, just sort of as a project, she decided we're going to save every piece of, plastic bag type packaging
Well, because they didn't.
for a
connect
year
the-
just
they
to
didn't
kind of
have
see
the,
what,
something.
how much there is.
You know, they didn't drop the something. It was
We
like-
ended up giving up on it because it was taking up so much space. It
all installed, they just had to make something.
was becoming a physical obstruction to our lives. But yeah, it's very frustrating not to be able to drop those off at a recycling center or something.
Did,
I have
didn't
hope
you-
for the mealworms.
did you talk about the fact that these, even when we take them to Myers and drop them off, that nobody knows really where they go, or does Meyer just, have them dumped in the ocean? I don't know.
Yeah, I've never been able to find where they actually go. I called Meyer one time and I didn't get very far.
Kroger, I took a bunch from our recycling event over to Kroger, and they just accept the food bags, plastic bags. They don't take all the other items, but they have a labeled bin, and they're pretty proud of their sustainability initiative. So I imagine that they seem to be more above board than Myers at this point. I was impressed with that. I still go to Meijer, but
But what happens to them? I mean,
Yeah,
I thought I heard something on the radio just in the last week about scientists that were, delving more into this because we've got so many of these plastic bags that are floating around in the ocean and everywhere. Is there some science that it moves this forward in our being able to do something with these to recycle the petrochemicals that they come from, or is that just not even possible? Ned?
yeah, Ned.
I mean, it's been discussed for a very long time. There are a couple of issues. One is that the plastics, sort of by definition, are things that are made on purpose to be durable and so forth. But there's the other issue is, of course, as you know, there are lots of different kinds of plastics, and so most people just look at plastic and say plastic, and so they tend to all get thrown together. And different kinds of plastics are amenable to different kinds of disassembly. So, for example, polystyrene, actually foam, is actually pretty easy to recycle if it's clean. The problem is, of course, a lot of it is used for things like food packaging, and so it ends up coming in with not only the foam itself, but also food contamination. So what you're going to do is try to break it down into the original small molecules that it was built out of. And you've got a bunch of, I don't know, French fry grease or pizza grease, that kind of thing in there. It's very hard to get a clean product that you can then reuse.
Right.
And the other things like polyethylene, polypropylene, those things can be recycled reasonably well. Those are the kinds of things, milk jugs into park benches. It's not like the world needs an infinite number of park benches, though. And there's quite a few lumps of plastic out there. And then if somebody throws in, an old piece of PVC piping, or lots of other things are made out of PVC too, you can't recycle PVC the same way you can recycle the other things. And if you start cooking PVC too hot, you end up making some nasty things like dioxins. And so that's a lot of the challenge is our society anyway is not very good at, genuinely separating things into their different categories, and the uses that they've been put to typically bring contaminants as well. So I'm not saying it's not doable. I'm saying those are major challenges when the product you're making is not something that's, sort of highly profitable. Um, from a financial point of view, that's a reason that there's not a lot of driving force or a lot of successful examples. There are lots of laboratory cases where somebody can take a clean sample of a given plastic and find a way to take it apart. But doing it with a genuine mixture of that comes from a municipal waste stream or something like that is a much bigger problem. None of that says it can't be done. Lots of plastics, actually, PVC, except for PVC and maybe nylon, lots of plastics actually are perfectly good fuels. If you take polyethylene and you burn it, it's essentially equivalent to burning gasoline. So if you're going to use fossil materials to heat your house or heat your city anyway, in principle, you can have an incinerator and do distribute the heat to, you've already committed those hydrocarbons, you might as well use them. But that's not true recycling. That's just not leaving it in a landfill.
Well, if you just separate out the plastic bags that are used at Kroger and Meijer, and if they were clean, are those, I don't know what category, how are those defined? Are they polystyrene? What category do they fit into?
I don't actually know what those bags are made of. I should find that out. But the fact that they're white suggests that they've also got stuff embedded in them, like, I don't know, probably some kind of whitening agent, whatever it is, that probably isn't plastic itself. Not that that necessarily is a problem. It depends what it is. What were you going to say, Sarah?
A lot of the bags are number 4, which whatever that's under.
Oh,
I saw some the other day that were 5, but most of them are 4. I don't know if that helps, but
number 4 is LDPE, low density polyethylene. That's more or less the same as milk jugs, except that as I said, the fact that it's white suggests that they also embed some kind of coloring agent in it.
So if something was done to make them not white, just clear, and that was taken out of the mix, would it make it easier or more likely to be able to break it down and use it somehow? Or is that, I mean, these things are economically maybe all infeasible, but I just wondered, at least with the plastic bags and when you're shopping at a lot of these places, is there any way of getting at those to do something about it and at least isolate that section and see if something can be done with that? Because you think of how many are used across the country or around the world on a regular basis. Is that something that can be done? I don't know. I guess I have the impression that you can't really break them down and reuse them, reuse the petrochemicals that they come from. Is that true?
Well, again, the answer, as a chemist, I can say the answer is, you can do anything if you're willing to throw money at it. The trouble is the society is not willing to throw money at it at that level. Chemical engineers always say, well, these things aren't possible because, there's can't make it a financially successful process.
Right.
That, of course, comes even just the use of hydrocarbons as fuels. All of those things depend, or actually moving away from those kinds of things in part, depend on convincing the world that money isn't the only value, the only way of assigning value to things. Or another way of saying it is, how are we going to, for example, assign a cost to dumping another ton of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere? So that whole idea of carbon taxes and so forth is associated with actually trying to assess and then somehow collect the costs of that, assign it to the people who do those things. Right now, that's dead in the water. I'm not saying it's not a great idea. I'm just saying society is not willing to say, well, I ran my car, so I'm going to have an exhaust fee. It's interesting though, when you actually look at what we do with water, we pay for water, but we also pay for sewer. We pay for the disposal of the water too. So I don't know, maybe at some point we could convince ourselves as a society that we should be paying for the sort of end of life aspect of the use of hydrocarbon materials too. The trouble is it's hard to assign cost to it, and nobody wants to be charged again for something they're getting rid of. People don't mind paying for things they're getting, but they're a lot less happy to pay for getting rid of things.
When you use the plastic bags from Myers, you are getting a product. I mean,
It's just one you don't want.
it's one you don't want, you want to get rid of it as soon as you get home.
Right.
I don't know.
Well,
There's
maybe
got
we
to be
should-
some way of leaning on these companies, you know?
Yeah. Do we know anything about who coordinates the recycling at Kroger? Maybe it would be interesting to ask what is the path that those bags that they collect takes.
Yeah, and there's some information on their website too. We can explore this a little bit further, but this partly reminds me of the conversation we had when Sarah was attempting to do a mind map. I mean, what are all the environmental things going on in our community? And you know, any given person has 1,000 opportunities to make a difference on a daily basis, or 10,000, who knows? But we tend to sort of focus on the I think we tend to lose sight of a sort of a holistic approach, and then feel disempowered or overwhelmed and do nothing. And I'm not saying we shouldn't talk about this, but I think that it's easy to lose sight of the big picture sometimes, and opportunities right before us that might have 1,000 times the impact. So I'm just sort of voicing my, how do we begin to understand the complexities in our environment, and what can we really do to make a difference? I don't know the answer, but it's kind of intriguing.
I've always felt like it would be really informative for me, and I think maybe for some other people, to follow my trash. And I kind of hear, okay, I see it go into the truck, right? And I see the truck drive away, and I hear that there's some sort of a transfer station and a bulking something, and then it goes someplace to a landfill somewhere. Well, I don't have to see that landfill. I have no idea where it even is. I hear there's methane capture going on, but I don't really know if that's, until we grapple with the impacts of our actions more directly, it's easy just to be out of sight, out of mind. And I don't know how you do something like that, because I'm not a video production person. But I wonder if that's a viable way to raise awareness of the consequences of those disposal actions, those individual actions.
Think we could arrange for a tour of the Granger facilities? I mean, that could be quite educational. I think.
Well, I think if a home TV crew went and visited there and shot some footage, they could make you didn't have to expose, right, people to an activity, but having one person might do the trick.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and there's a new MRF being built in Lansing that's hopefully going to be taking most of Lansing and East Lansing's recyclables, material recycling facility. And there's talk of having an education center as part of that. But that's just over on Pennsylvania. And they'll be interested in, I think the grand opening is coming up pretty soon, but they'll be interested in promoting that, and also encouraging local communities to use that facility,
Where
like
is
Meridian.
that? You said it's on Pennsylvania. Do you know where roughly?
I think it's near Haco Drive, kind of a Border Water and Light I can send the link on it, but
Well, I'd love to go do a tour of Granger as well. When my kid, like my kids, my oldest one did it, but then I had a younger one, so I couldn't go with him. But the kids used to go on a field trip to Granger all the time.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Which school?
Cornell and Okemos.
That's great.
And when MSU built its recycling facility, they purposely built observation areas where you could see what was going on inside the sorting facility without being in it, right? And they purposely built meeting rooms where they could do those kinds of educational events. So that public education part was integral to the design of the facility.
That's great.
What do we know about whether that's been sort of utilized? Well, obviously not in the COVID era, but how that got used up to now. I don't know much about that.
now remember our green team, which used to be called the Meridian Township Citizens Recycling Advisory Committee, or Empty Crack, as we called it fondly. They toured the Granger landfill back in the 2008 or 9, and they wouldn't. I don't think they let us get too deep into it, but
Were there photographs and stuff?
yeah, I can probably dig some of that up. We also toured the methane, the landfill gas production facility, which is right adjacent to that. Another time through LCC, and that was it's kind of an eye opener. But yeah, and now with virtual tours and things, there could be some really interesting educational opportunities. I really like that idea of following your waste, and so many different types of waste too, like food waste, plastic waste. Sarah's distributing clothes today. I'm curious about that. Clothes recycling options, which have been shut down since COVID, and we were supposed to get a clothing dumpster at our recycling center, but that was eliminated. But maybe there's some other clothing recycling options.
Well, and shoes. I was just curious. I have a kid who he's never done this before, but wore through the sole of his shoe. So I took it to the cobbler or whatever it's called, and I was just curious. And of course, it was like $100 to redo one sole of the shoe, which I was like, well, of course that won't happen. So, but like, what do you do with a shoe when it's done? I mean, there's some Adidas, there's somebody that takes them and does something to them, but like, who's going to mail shoes? I mean, what does that do? You mail a ton of shoes somewhere, then you're just using the gas to get, it's just, it's so frustrating.
Well, it's better than transporting a truckload of foam that's like 200 pounds, and for a whole truck or whatever. You probably burn more gas in transporting it, even, something nearby, like to Dart. That's frustrating too, right? It's the concept of recycling, although it's very appealing, it kind of lets people off the hook. The best thing, of course, is not to use the thing in the first place.
Yeah.
So, but we're not advocating for your kids to go around in bare feet.
Oh, mine does.
Well, at home, sure. Actually, I was just thinking about that, the amount of extra wear that my students have suffered in the COVID era is probably, 1/50 what they normally get. Because at home, I'm pretty much barefoot the whole time.
Mine's barefoot playing football out the front yard. So.
Oh.
I don't know if this relates or not, but I've been thinking about. I've been working with John Sarver over the last 20 years in various projects, and he always had the concept of work smarter, not harder. And he continues to apply that as the chair of the Commission on the Environment, and as a member of our energy team. And I just like that general principle of a related idea is, I think it was Wayne Gretzky, like looking where the puck is going and knowing where the puck is going and then preparing yourself for that. And I think there's some opportunities like that with recycling and with green infrastructure and with environmental opportunities that are, the puck is heading in a certain direction. And if we can sort of be prepared to, ahead of time, rather than just kind of overwhelmed by all the opportunities that we have, and just take that positive action that we can, that we individually each see, I think that results in, I've seen that result in positive things. And just, I'm not quite sure how to communicate this concept. I've just been thinking about it lately and in my own life, and where do I have those opportunities? And I think this green infrastructure is a really big one that we've been talking about off and on for the last few months, but ecological landscaping in our yards, on our beaches, and our in our community. So thank you for letting me just vent my little mini insight.
Well, your point's well taken in the sense of if there were a way, almost an inventory of actions, an inventory of opportunities where we actually could say, well, you know, if you choose to, among the actions you can choose in your sort of day-to-day life, what are the ones that would have the most impact in terms of carbon footprint, in terms of, you know, protecting our waters, etc. I mean, that actually would be, it would be an interesting, inventory to consider in a more quantitative way than kind of saying, what do I do to make myself feel good, or because I'm angry because these plastic bags are clogging my house or whatever. I wonder, probably it's been done. I mean, subject of life cycle analysis has been around for a very long time. And it would be interesting to look into what's been discussed along those lines in terms of, for the regular old consumer.
I got a question for you as you sit on the Energy Commission. I think about the money that Meridian Township, for one, have poured into the green market, they're calling it, and puts into various projects around the township. And, are there any either programs or a facility that could take one element of this recycling thing, or maybe like Ned's talking about an educational program that looks at these various little aspects and things you might be able to do in your own personal life, but something that the township might consider getting behind. I don't, building some sort of modest sized anaerobic digester may be a bit more than the township is willing to take on, but are there things that could be done that would, for one, take care of some of these things and also encourage and maybe facilitate getting more people aware of what needs to be done, at least in our local community? And I don't know, I know it's all political, it's all comes down to money and all that, but are there any little things like this that we might be able to push the township in the direction of actually funding some things?
Definitely, there's two things that come immediately to mind, and everyone else can chime in. But there's the board set aside a $10,000 green infrastructure grant to the Environmental Commission, and we're talking about permeable pavement and rain gardens, and maybe even something at the market on the green roofs. It's just a lot of ideas. So that's one possibility in the works. It's not a huge amount of money, but it could potentially be complemented by other local service clubs like Rotary and Kiwanis contribute to youth initiatives. So if it's a youth initiative or something at the local high school or... So that's one. The other thing is that there's interest in improving our recycling center. And and so there's an opportunity to maybe take plastic bags there or compost there. Number of things, various levels of work that would need to happen, but I like the question. I think sometimes the questions are better than the answers, but
Sorry, I was distracted for a second there when you started there, Leroy. Could you go back to that first part you were talking about another grant that could potentially, one idea was a green infrastructure type investment?
okay, that was the I was just reiterating what we talked about on Wednesday, or last week at our Environmental Commission meeting. But John had asked, maybe there are some opportunities to kind of build something that addresses some of what we're talking about here in terms of recycling center, methane digester, and so I mentioned the grant that the trustees have set aside for the Environmental Commission to discuss. And on last Wednesday, some of the ideas that came up were a green infrastructure demonstration, a green roof, permeable pavement demo, maybe a competition between Hazlitt and Okemos schools, working with youth to demonstrate green things. So
Great,
that's what I
thanks.
was saying.
All right.
I just thinking also about what I think Sarah was talking about, which is somebody was talking about doing little things that over time and over with large numbers of people everybody doing little things in their life can make a large difference. And that is an educational program, either in the schools or, I don't know, even somehow publicized through the township board, and just funds made available to promote that might also add, it's trying to hit it from a number of different angles, and that would be one of them as well. But I think that's a good idea. I think everybody thinking about doing these little things in their lives that make a difference, but when it all adds up, it ends up being not little, but something substantial.
That sounds like a song on your album, John, The Little Things.
Well, I actually have that as a part of, now you're saying album, I'm just talking about one song here, Leroy.
One at a time. But
One at a time. But no, that's part of what I had in there. I thought that could be, it could break into a bridge or something that goes into talking about the difference that can be made and that needs to be made really over time by everybody doing these small things, and how that makes a substantial difference with the multitudes of people getting involved. It makes a difference over time. So yeah, that's part of it. I think that would fit into the song. We won't go album direction yet, but yeah. One song at a time, right? Yeah, you write as well, Roy. So think about these things.
we could just take turns right now. I know Stephen would contribute something.
What am I contributing?
A line to a song.
Oh,
First, you
yeah.
gotta start. You got to come up with a rhyme scheme, and then then you can do that. Circulating the limerick game.
Well, yeah, that's true. I want to come up with a rhythmic structure. I'm a percussionist primarily, so I want to come up with a rhythmic structure first, figure out those beats per minute and how you can overlay things in that framework, and then a rhyme scene. How do you say that? A rhyme theme. There we go.
Rhyme scheme.
Could be, installed over the top of that.
Rhyme scene?
Rhyme scene.
A crime scene, that's it.
So
I lo-
just as a moment of diversion from the subject, since rhymes were discussed, last night after running a review session until 10 o'clock at night, I absolutely still needed a bicycle ride for the day. And so a friend of mine also was running a a review session late. So we agreed that we should get on our bikes at 10 o'clock at night. And we rode down Meridian Road and got on this, Bill knows this well, the trail that goes across through the parks all the way over um, to Dobie. And it was just incredibly, just so beautiful to be there in the night, you know, a warm evening riding through the woods. Yeah. So I was thinking of, you know, Robert Frost's poem, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. It wasn't exactly snowy, but, you know, my little bike must think it weird to ride along in such low gears, et cetera, et cetera.
I
Anyway.
think, Ed, you're gonna have to be pulled into this. You got a lot of good ideas there. We're gonna have to work on those.
It sounds more like classical than hip hop, but you know, you can
Yes.
pull it off.
Yeah, pull those two together, classical hip hop. There we go.
Oh, anyway.
Did you get to hear Ned's COVID blues?
I haven't heard that yet, and I'm looking
Okay.
forward to that.
Well, I'm gonna.
You have it, right, Leroy?
There's a YouTube link, and
Yeah, right.
I'll share it in the chat window.
Good.
He was there.
Well, does that tune have a chord progression and melodic line? Oh, it's got melodic line development, but does it have a chord progression?
The tune was Folsom Prison Blues.
Oh, that's right. I played on top of that. Played on top of that. Okay.
Got to get Ned a new outfit for the actual performance.
Black, everything in black to sort of. Who was it that did that Folsom?
Johnny Cash.
Yeah, Johnny Cash. Get it, the Johnny Cash outfit.
Yeah, I don't know. Exactly Johnny Cash like. But anyway, it was a lot of fun singing with Leroy, his friends. Very lucky that he put up with me for those 5 minutes.
Okay, it's coming in the chat window here. Anywho, well, anything else on folks' minds? I'm curious. I have one question for Sarah about how does this faith-based group get involved with brownfields? I mean, what's the connection there?
So this faith-based group started. Action of Greater Lansing has a bunch of different issues task force that they focus on. They are adding an environmental team, environmental task force. And so we met and came up with goals. And one of the things that people were interested in were finding out if the GM brownfield if anything was happening with it. And so we've been doing a whole lot of research to find out, finding out information, finding out what we can do if there's a way to educate the community about it, and if educating the community will do anything. We're planning to do a presentation in January of teaching people about brownfields. You know, we're also interested in figuring out if there's a way to legislatively work towards the idea of the fact that, you know, these companies, these people on properties can ruin the earth and then just leave and not do anything or not be responsible. So, but the GM Brownfield is under the Racer Trust, and so there's in our research that we're finding that there's some stuff going on with it, and possibly new owners, or I don't know. So I did find an article that said that there's some scientists that are figuring out a way of cleaning up some of it. I'm not going to say the chemical right, dioxane or
Well, there's dioxin and there's dioxane, and those are two different things, but they're chemically related, but they're
I think it was ANE.
okay. Yeah, that's a solvent. Yeah, that's a
And
concern.
so there were some scientists that have figured out how to, I don't know, I have the article, figure out how to like do something so that it will put something down in the ground so it will turn it into carbon dioxide, and so it will kind of make it not as dangerous.
Do
So
you have
we're
that
just,
article? Can you share it with us?
I'm on my phone, but I will send it to Lori and have him send it out to everybody. It was from 18 or 19, but I'll send it.
Okay.
So just, also looking at it brownfield wise of like, is there, like I said, is there stuff we can do legislatively to make this not be, the taxpayers that are having to pay to clean things up, that kind of thing. And just trying to research and trying to see if there's something that we can do, especially also for environmental justice, because there's a whole lot of people that live around these brownfields that it's affecting them, and trying to research to find out if there are ways to deal with that, and ways to help those people that do live in those places that are damaging to them. So it's a big, as you can understand, it's a big thing and we're just trying to figure out in what direction to go with it. One of the directions we were wanting to go was with, what the work I'm doing with the schools, and we just couldn't go that direction because the schools can't do anything right now. Because my plan is that the Okemos School District will create something that then I'm hoping will be a model to be able to share with other districts, in terms of having an environmental lens when they look at the way Okemos works is they have a strategic plan, and they have a lens that they look through for everything they have an equity lens and all that kind of stuff. So I want them to include an environmental lens. So right now I'm on the operations committee for transitioning back into the schools. And if it were in play, it would be, that transition would be, would include looking through the environmental aspect. And just to give an example, we don't have that part of the strategic plan for something that to be looked at. But, when operations, we were like, well, how is lunch going to happen? Should we switch from the milk containers to plastic? And I was like, whoa. Let's not do that, because that's even worse than the milk. You know what I mean? So it's that kind of thing. But we're just not in a place to be able to do that because of COVID and schools. So instead we're just seeing what we can do with the brownfield, and not just GM, but overall. And so, yeah, that's a big old mouthpiece full, but.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
I just posted a link to the Lansing, the recycling facility, as an article in the City Pulse. There's probably better stuff there, but since it was mentioned, it's kind of a significant environmental opportunity coming down the pike here. I did hear that Ann Arbor wants to contract with them, so all of a sudden it's not as important to convince Granger to use the facility because it'll have plenty of waste from Ann Arbor. But I'm not totally on top of it.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, for an example, brownfield wise, there's a park in Saginaw that's just, I don't know a whole lot, but there's a park that was on, I think was a GM brownfield that they've created. Saginaw Riverfront something park. So. But I will send out the article I found.
In terms of this following your waste and some kind of video or how do you say, story put together that could be run either online or on television or something. Is there somebody on the Energy Commission that would have greater, how would you say, authority and legitimacy going going to Granger or what's the other company that does the majority of the trash pickup, going to them to see about being able to get into their facility to an extent with a video and then doing something that talks about following your waste and then maybe goes to, because I've got these notes here. The other thing was the observation facility, and that's at MSU. That has to do with the recycling at MSU that maybe could talk to the necessary people to try and arrange something where not a whole group of people going because of COVID, but 2 or 3 people, somebody with a video camera, whether it's actually somebody that is, maybe the township puts up money to get actual a camera company, somebody locally here to go and do this, or you take your GoPro and do some of this and then excuse me, edit it together, to have something that would be available that could actually a visual and somebody does some voiceover work to talk about what's being seen and how we can affect what happens with these things. Is that even feasible? I mean, is that something that might be put up to the board to say, we'd like to do this, we'd like some money to do it, and we'd also like the board to go to use the influence of the board to get to these companies, whether it's just MSU and Granger maybe, to be able to do this and put a piece together. Is that feasible, or am I just talking and just to talk?
I think it's a great idea. One of the things that comes to mind is what Tri-County Regional Planning Commission has put together related to stormwater and green infrastructure. And they've got all these educational videos, 1-minute video about building a rain barrel, for example. But there could be a parallel type of a website and short videos that talk about plastic bags and smart shopping and a variety of waste-related issues, food composting. But that's not exactly what you're talking about. But some of these videos may already exist, and I do.
Yeah,
think
I just posted a link to the recycling center at MSU, and they do have a little 1-minute video down at the bottom of this page.
Oh, cool. Sweet.
Will these links show up in something that you can send out as an email, or do we have to, how do we take these from what's in the chat to being something that I can access after we're finished here?
Stephen might answer that.
If in the bottom right, where you would post a message in the chat box, there's a file, and you can save that chat.
So
Do the 3 little buttons on the right side of that chat.
Yeah,
The three dots.
and it'll just stick it as a text document into your Zoom folder.
okay.
But
Oh.
in principle, that's
Thank you,
being
Bill.
sort of like if whatever Leroy does with the recording, that the chat is
Also saved.
also saved in combination with that. Yeah.
I'll try and send it out as well, but thank you, Bill. I didn't know that.
Oops. I think I just disappeared from things here.
You're still here, John. I have to go. I have a office hours in 1.5 minutes. So
Thank you.
I have enjoyed seeing you all. And Sarah, I'd love to hear more about the progress that this faith-based discussion is finding, and also who's participating and so forth, because I think
Yeah, I'm going to email you.
that would be great. There are a lot of people of good intent, but who don't really know how to, where to invest their effort.
Yeah.
That's one of the paths that people might be interested in. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Any other
Thank you.
parting comments? Bill or John, Stephen, Sarah?
Always looking for new song ideas, so keep them coming.
Just remember, 1 mile in your car is more than a pound of carbon dioxide emitted. So every mile you don't drive is that alone is a significant thing.
Wow.
Depends on the car. If it's an SUV, it's 2 pounds at least. Blah blah blah.
All right. Thanks.
See you next
I might- yeah. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, Roy.
Thank you.